President Biden went into this Christmas holiday weekend focused on the single issue that has so far defined his presidency, the still raging coronavirus pandemic.
We should all be concerned about Omicron, but not panicked. If you're fully vaccinated, and especially if you got your booster shot, you are highly protected. And if you're unvaccinated, you're at a higher risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19, getting hospitalized, and even dying.
Well, the president did notch some big accomplishments in 2021, a bipartisan infrastructure bill, a largely successful vaccine rollout, and 6 million new jobs. But there's also an economic bill on the verge of collapse, thousands dying of COVID every week, and of course the stubbornly high inflation that we're currently dealing with. He is heading into a midterm year with the lowest approval ratings of his presidency. Joining me now to discuss, former Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer and Republican political strategist Alice Stewart. Welcome, both ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. So, Senator Boxer, let's start with you. The president has this very narrow window, only 10 months, to get his agenda through before the midterm elections. He still has a Build Back Better bill, voting rights, immigration reform, gun safety, a whole host of other issues. What do you think he needs to be focusing on right now?
I think he knows exactly what he has to focus on, voting rights and Build Back Better, some version of it. But it's not just what he's going to do. We're forgetting that the two huge bills that passed, one in a bipartisan fashion, infrastructure, and the other one, the COVID Relief Act, more than $1 trillion each, they're going to be rolled out. So it's not like everything is just stopped. People are going to see these accomplishments day after day while he works on getting even more done.
And Alice, I mean, to you, because Democrats are obviously still fuming at Senator Joe Manchin after he effectively halted, to say the least, the Build Back Better bill. What is the way forward in your opinion?
Well, the best way moving forward is what we're hearing from some Democrats now is take Build Back Better, break it up into little pieces and move forward. And I think getting away from these transformational packages and transformational spending is the way to go. Look, I've taught about what Senator Boxer was so famous for when she served was you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And at some times you have to put aside your ideological purity to get things done. And that's exactly what should happen now is both sides, Republicans and Democrats, put aside your differences in terms of ideological thinking and find what you agree on, get that passed. And if there's certain aspects of Build Back Better that Democrats think is so wonderful and needs to be passed, then take that to the voters in the midterm elections. Run on those issues. And if that's what the people want, then that's what's going to happen and you'll get it done next year.
Do you agree with that strategy, Senator Boxer, that this bill needs to be broken up into smaller pieces to get perhaps Joe Manchin and maybe some Republicans on board?
It sounds really great. Our problem is if we can't package this in a way that it can pass with 51 votes, we may not get it done. Now, I do agree we should always reach out to the other side. And there are so many wonderful things in Build Back Better, such as making sure that our kids have universal preschool. I mean, that's just one example, that our seniors can get help with hearing aids, things like that. So yes, I think one potential is to bring those things separately. But I just always know, because I'm a pragmatist who tries to get things done, sometimes you have to package it in a way that it can get through on 51 votes. But I just love the idea of being able to get bipartisan support.
Speaking of you being a pragmatist, Senator Boxer, the president also said this week, quote, the only thing standing between getting voting rights legislation passed and not getting passed is the filibuster. He said, I support making an exception on voting rights of the filibuster. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Senate would consider changes to any rules which prevent us from debating and reaching final conclusion on important legislation. I am assuming you agree with that strategy, but, Manchin and Sinema have consistently said that they would vote no to change the filibuster rules.
I think they're open to changing some of the rules that deal with a talking filibuster, and that would be very helpful. In other words, if someone just doesn't want to have a vote on voting rights, let them stand there, let them look right in the camera and say why. So I think they're open to that. But, you know, if you look at Mitch McConnell's actions, he did away with the filibuster for Supreme Court justices. I was in the Senate when we preserved it for that. So he has really led the way on that. And they ought to just do away with it for things like voting rights, because let me tell you this, if we don't have the right to vote, and it isn't fair and just, we lose what we have here, which is the greatest democracy in the world. And I do not want to see that happen for my kids, my grandkids, and everybody else's.
Yeah, it's a lot of people saying this is a pivotal moment when it comes to voting rights and protecting them. Alice, your thoughts on changing the filibuster rules and, you know, perhaps setting a precedent?
Yeah, with the greatest respect to the senator, I think it's important that we reiterate to the American people that we are a great democracy because we have free and fair elections, and our election system is one of integrity, and we do have one person, one vote, and our election system does not need to be federalized. We don't need to nationalize our elections. They are run state by state, and they need to be mandated and legislated on that fashion. And I think Democrats, because they're in power, are making a huge mistake if they decide to pick and choose where they want to change the filibuster, because when they're no longer the party in power, they're going to regret having done so.
So this week, President Biden, he gave, yeah, go ahead, Senator Boxer.
Because if you know nothing about history, that sounds great. But if you know even just a little bit, you know that we needed the Voting Rights Act, and you know that Republicans and Democrats voted for it over and over and over, because it isn't as simple as that. Some of the states, we may remember in history, discriminated against certain groups. So, yeah, I think it's essential that we go back to the Voting Rights Act, something that I was proud to vote for. Every Republican I knew voted for it, too. So let's get back to those days where we can go together and protect the right to vote for everybody. It's common sense.
So President Biden also had some interesting comments when he was asked if he planned to run for re-election. Let's listen to what he had to say.
You plan to run for re-election?
Yes. If I'm in the health I'm in now, if I'm in good health, then in fact, I would run again.
And if that means a rematch against Donald Trump?
You're trying to tempt me now. Sure. Why would I not run against Donald Trump or even the nominee? That'd increase the prospect of running.
Quick answers here. So Senator Boxer, what do you think? Will President Biden run again? And what about Donald Trump?
I believe 100% in what he said. And if things are looking good and he's feeling good, he's going to go. Donald Trump, I think I have to say, I have no clue. I personally hope not, for the good of the country.
Alice, Donald Trump?
Well, first off, I think Joe Biden, of course, he's going to say he's running again. The moment he says he's not, he's a lame duck president and really won't be able to get anything done. But as for Donald Trump, no one knows until we see him come down the escalator again. And I tend to agree with the senator that it might not be best for Republicans if he were to run, because we need someone that will grow on the base that he has and bring in the voters that we lost in the last election.
All right, last question to each of you that I definitely want to get in. What do you think was the biggest political story, in your opinion, of 2021, and what do you think will be the biggest political story of 2022? Senator Boxer, let's start with you.
Okay, to me, it's an easy call. The January 6th insurrection. It's the first time in our history that an American president defended the perpetrators of an attack on our Capitol. And you know, the last time it happened like that was during the War of 1812. So I went back. James Madison was president. This is what he said. This attack was barbaric, uncivilized. He called for unity. He asked everyone to come together and defend the country. What did Donald Trump say? He loved the rioters, even though there were 1,000 assaults on police officers. He said the rioters are innocent. And the attack was a, quote, protest. So this is shocking in and of itself. And I think not only will it be the biggest issue of this year, but maybe one of the biggest issues of all times.
And 2022, you predicting the possible comeback of Joe Biden?
I do. And you know something Joe said, I wrote it down here. Nothing has been good enough, he said. I said, Joe, I'm sorry. The president said, nothing has been good enough. And I would say rhetorically, when's the last time you ever heard a president say that? He's refreshing. He's a real person. He's compassionate. He's not slick. And he will speak from the heart. And I think, of course, COVID is an issue. We can't control that, but I hope if that goes well, and we see all these jobs, more jobs created in the first year of any presidency created in Joe Biden's first year. And these bills I talked about. So, yeah,
And
I think
Alice,
we'll see a turn.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Senator. And to you, Alice, your picks for 2021 and 2022.
In terms of politics in this year, has to be without a doubt the Virginia gubernatorial race for Republicans and Democrats. Republican Glenn Youngkin focused on policies that the people are concerned with, did not get tied up with the personalities that many people tried to tie him with Donald Trump. He focused on policies and he won. Whereas the Democrats made it all about Donald Trump, who was not even on the ballot, and they lost. So I think that was a learning lesson and a case study for the next election. And moving into 2022, I see the biggest story of next year will be pretty certain a Republican takeover, certainly of the House and potentially of the Senate. And with the change of balance of power in Washington, I think the possibility of getting things done will be even greater.
Thank you both, Alice Stewart and former Senator Boxer, for a great conversation. Thank you for that, and we will be right back.